Okay, so you guys really seem to like the reverb video from last week where we talked about gated reverb. So, voila, another visual. Let's go. So to get my reverb sound, I feel like really there's two key parts that when I listen for reverb, these are the things I'll listen for. And that really goes for any effect, but we're gonna focus on reverb and mention delay in this video. So visual. So here's our visual again. So we have our dry signal again. This is a snare drum, we'll just call it, because a snare drum is easy to understand and visualize. Then it's going to go through an EQ after it's sent from its regular channel, EQ. And then it's going to go through a reverb, and then it's going to come back to the return. So here's our reverb. Now, I'm kind of visualizing this is our, just like a line of, like just time, like this is our starting line. So here, the snare drum immediately starts. Well, then there's this gap. We're calling it magic sauce. This gap right here makes all the difference. So that gap being the pre-delay, and then the EQ before it, that is what I really listen for and hear whenever I'm dialing in a reverb. Okay, so I've thrown this mix together pretty quick just to give you a illustration real quick on pre-delay and EQ and the impact it can have on a mix overall. So see, whenever I'm dialing in an effect, what I'm listening for is not the effect. I want the effect to blend into the background and become part of the sound. A big complaint I have about a lot of effects in mixes is they're heard too much. Now, I definitely want to hear reverb. I definitely want to hear delays and all that fun stuff. But I don't want it to stand out from the source tone, if that makes sense. So what we do is we EQ going into the effects so that we don't have a bunch of excess things bouncing around inside of a reverb, and then the effect also is shaped in a way that it doesn't basically overpower the dry signal. So if you were to not EQ something going into a reverb, you're sending the entire frequency spectrum of that channel into the verb, which is going to be bigger and more it's going to have all the definition of the regular signal, but to me that's just too much, and it causes it to stand out in an unnatural way. So let's listen real quick. So what we've got here is a fairly basic setup. I've got drums and apparently, drums, bass, electric, keys, violin, acoustic, and vocals. So I've got those going into the effects on my reverb cheat sheet, plus a extra just delay. So I've got the drum and reverb, drum and vocal reverb from my cheat sheet, and then the gated reverb we discussed last week, and a delay. Alright, so real quick, let's listen to the mix just to get a baseline of what it sounds like ready to go. Without the effects. So you can definitely tell I love effects. Those may be a little bit too loud in, you know, all reality, but I like it and I think it sounds cool. So now what I want to do is I want to go through here and turn off the EQs so that you hear what they sound like just going straight into the unit. And what I hear, and a lot of this is preference in fairness, what I hear is the mix gets way more muddy. And in some ways, I do have to admit that it may sound cooler because the snare just kind of goes crazy in the reverb and it's just really big sounding, but it's also unnatural to me and it sounds like an effect, which can be cool at times. But if we're talking about a kind of safe across the board practice, I think that I still go with the EQ. So let's listen that way. I'm going to turn them off and on for you. Okay, so that is what I've got going on with the EQs. And to me, like I said before, I feel like things start popping out in an unnatural way. Like I say, objectively, it may sound cooler, but I feel like the people are going to start noticing it too much without that EQ in there on those effects. So now let's really quick just look at the pre-delays on here, because I think that there's something interesting about this. So again, these are from my Reverb cheat sheet. So I'm actually going to be redoing my Reverb cheat sheet. A lot of you have downloaded it and messaged me, had some good results from it. So if you haven't yet, link below, go get it. It's free. But I'm actually going to one-up myself, and I am going to be releasing a new effects mini course to go along with that. So if you like just those settings and you want to get inside my head a little bit more, I'm going to be releasing a full-blown mini course on effects and my approach to them. So hope you guys enjoy that. That's coming up. Now what we have here on the drum reverb, I'm just doing right now a 20 millisecond pre-delay with a decay of basically two seconds. Well, then we jump over to the vocal reverb, and for this one I've got it all the way up at 150. A lot of times I just preach to have your pre-delay for your vocals around 100, but there is a time for more to me. If the song is really anthemic, kind of like this one is, where you really want it just kind of over the top and soaring, I really like, up to 150 milliseconds on a pre-delay for a vocal. I think it sounds really cool. So nothing wrong with that. Now then, things get a little even more interesting on this one. For the gated reverb for the snare drum, again, if you like that sound, check out last week's video. I'll link it below. The pre-delay is at 0 milliseconds. And to me, that is sort of, I guess, because I envision that sound as part of the snare drum. I want it to absolutely cannon blast out from the second that the snare drum is hit. So that's kind of why I landed there. That's just preference, and that's just sort of an effect that I wanted on the snare drum for that. So those are just like a few things that I feel like make all the difference in the world for your reverbs and delays and, effects like that. Because like I've said before, I feel like a lot of times my complaint about effects isn't that they sound bad, it's that I hear them too much. And I think that there's a place for that, but I also think that it can be distracting at times and can also just muddy up a mix. So this is where I've landed for this mix. I hope you like it. Give this a shot. Link in the description for my Reverb cheat sheet. See you guys in the next one.